Welcome to a special program here on Eastlink as we celebrate the release of a brand new book. It is called The Rural Entrepreneur, John Bragg, the force behind Oxford Frozen Foods and Eastlink. The author of the book, this is, I believe, his 53rd overall, is Donald Savoie. He is probably the region's foremost expert on the economy and small business, a longtime professor at l'Université de Moncton. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
I enjoyed your book.
Thank you.
It's very, very good, very entertaining and informative. A word that jumps out almost from page one is the word humility. And if you look at his two biggest entities, Oxford Frozen Foods and Eastlink, you can't find the word brag in either title. How humble a guy is this guy?
Well, you've come up with the word means you read the book, because it permeates the book, because it is John Bragg. He is a very humble man. It's never about him. In fact, I asked him once, I said, look, I dedicate books early on. I dedicated to my wife, to my children, and so on, to my tutors. And I said, to whom should we dedicate this book? And he said, to the future entrepreneurs of the Maritimes, because the future of the Maritimes depends on it. That's John Bragg. It was not about him. It was about the Maritimes. It's about his community. It's about his employees. It's about everybody else. It's never about him. Look, he set up 77 scholarships in Atlantic University. Not one of them, I repeat, not one of them bears his name. It's named after somebody else. That's John Bragg. I remember my wife telling him, John, after this book comes out, you may not enjoy the low profile that you do now. It may put you, and John, oh yeah, I worry about that. So it's not, he doesn't want to be a flash. He doesn't search for the limelight. He is who he is. Just a humble guy from rural Nova Scotia who decided to make a difference, and boy, did he ever make a difference.
You know, if some book reviewer out there wanted to take a shot at you, they might say about this book, it's not very critical. What do you say to that?
Well, actually, I've thought about that, and somebody who read the manuscript said, you need to add a section or a chapter, the negative side of John Bragg. Honestly, it's not because he's my friend. Honestly, there's not much of a negative side. I couldn't find one. Look what he's done in terms of the business community. He's accomplished a great deal. In terms of giving back to his community, he's accomplished a great deal. In terms of his commitment, he lives in the same house that he built. Not too many leading businessmen have that kind of track record. So try to find a side of John Bragg that's not positive. For the life of me, I can't find one. And I told this person, if you want to write a book and find a negative side of John Bragg, go for it. It's not me. I don't think you will, but good luck with that.
You've known him for close to 25 years. You met him at a reception at Mount Allison in 1997. Only talked to him for a little bit that night. What do you recall of first impressions?
I had heard of John Bragg. I didn't know him. He came up quietly and said, Donald, the report you did on the establishment of the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, that's good for the region. It's a shot in the arm. The region needs it. That was it. He didn't draw any attention. He was not loud. He was quiet, firm. That was John Bragg, and I got to know him after.
You've become good friends since and have golfed a bit. There's a belief you can learn an awful lot about a person by watching him or her play golf. What do you learn about John Bragg when you watch him play golf? He
is deeply, deeply honest. Golfers that I golf with, I won't name names, but some of them are pretty loose with a mulligan. If they miss a shot, they'll try it again, not count it. They're pretty loose with gimmies, 10 feet, they'll grab it up. Not John Bragg, no. He's honest to a fault. He doesn't cheat. And so that tells me if he doesn't cheat at golf, probably the same in terms of his business. Second, he'll repair the golf course. He'll go around and replace divots and make sure the course is in good shape. Even if he didn't gouge it, he will fix it. Third, he plays with old golf balls, scrubbed up old golf balls. He'll look for old golf balls, and I play with a fairly expensive golf ball, Titleist Pro V, and I said, John, why don't you get one of those? Oh, mine seemed to go just as far. He's probably right. So that's John Bragg. So again, try to find a bad side of John Bragg. Try to find a negative side of John Bragg. I can't.
So to recap, he's fixing his divot and your divot and anybody else's divot?
Every divot around. Yeah, he will go around and fix. That's how he plays golf. Yeah. Doesn't cheat. Plays the ball where it is. If it's in the tall grass, that's where he plays it. Yeah.
Some biographical detail from your book. This man could have at one point been a teacher, for sure, probably a phys ed teacher who coached basketball, because he loved that sport. And he could have been a lawyer, and he chose neither. Why?
I think John Bragg was somewhat born and nurtured as an entrepreneur. That was his calling, and he answered it. Sure, he was offered a teaching job in Pugwash, which is a beautiful community. He was very good at basketball. He could have done that with a good pension at the end of a career and so on, but that was not him. He went to law school, and I asked him, why did you leave law school? And he said, well, after 3 or 4 months, I realized that people there wanted to be lawyers. I didn't want to be a lawyer, so he wanted to be an entrepreneur. And a colleague of him, George Cooper, who's a well-known lawyer here, said to me, I said to John, you're leaving law school to go pick blueberries? Is there something wrong? John said, no, I'm going to go pick blueberries. And so he went because he wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's in his soul to be an entrepreneur.
His dad, Elmer, when John told his dad, Dad, I'm not going to be a lawyer now, I want to get into the blueberry business, that could have been a tough moment for a father, but his dad handled it very well, didn't he?
He handled it extremely well, and I know many fathers who would not have reacted quite as kindly as he did. And he said, look, if that's what you want to do, you have my support, go and do it. And so that tells me that deep inside of John Bragg, he wanted to be an entrepreneur from day one. In fact, he was an entrepreneur at age 15, so he wasn't about to let go. Thank God, as a Maritimer, that we have a John Bragg.
How much of a role model was his father, Elmer, to him?
Obviously, I didn't know, but John talked to me a fair bit about his father, and others have as well. He was a community leader. He was not one to panic and not one to calm, cool, and collected, and I think that shaped John Bragg's view of the world as well.
Genetics versus environment is a chapter in your book, Born versus Made. Was he a born entrepreneur, or was he made by his surroundings?
Well, it's a question that's never been answered in literature, and I wanted to get into it because I thought John Bragg was a fascinating side of an entrepreneur. Was this guy, the kind of success he's had, and if you look at the track record as how he grew his businesses, it's just amazing. And I thought, was he born an entrepreneur and so on? I think it's a mixture. I think there was something in his DNA. There's something there. But I think he was also nurtured. And early on, he saw the big advantages of being an entrepreneur, of doing it, of building, of creating something, of see how things run. I think that was part of him, and he just let it go. He let it happen. There's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs who would have been good entrepreneurs who decided to take a teaching job. He was not one of them. So I think part of John Bragg was, sure, part of it is in DNA, but part of it is nurtured, part of it is what he really wanted to do.
We'll take a break right there, come back and talk about how he built Eastlink into a phenomenon. Our guest is Donald Savoie. We are talking John Bragg here on Eastlink. We continue our conversation with Donald Savoie, an Université de Moncton professor who has written a wonderful new book called Rural Entrepreneur, John Bragg, the force behind Oxford Frozen Foods and Eastlink. As we continue along, this is a man who never moved his head office out of Collingwood, Cumberland County. He never came to Halifax, Montreal, Toronto. What do you think he saw as the bonus in staying in rural Nova Scotia?
Not only has he never moved his head office, I can tell you with certainty he never will. He's just built this beautiful building, new head office in Collingwood. For him, it means the world. He actually deeply committed not just to his community, Collingwood and Oxford, but to rural Canada. It comes up every time. You have a conversation with John Bragg more than 15 minutes, I assure you, it will come up. He is a champion of rural development, and he thinks that rural Canada can grow, can prosper, give it a chance. And he's got this theory that every rural community can grow, one community at a time. He says that over and over again. And I kind of pushed him on it. I said, now, John, seriously, I know a couple of communities in the Maritimes that they're not dead, they're dying. And he said, no, go in that community, there's an entrepreneur who runs a store, perhaps in the old days who was a bootlegger, I don't know, but there is somebody there, and work with the entrepreneur. Every community has an entrepreneur, every community has potential. He deeply, deeply believes that. So for anyone to think that he's going to move head office out of Oxford, no, it's staying.
You've mentioned going into his offices. What is that like, going into his offices?
It's amazing. I went in there, and it reminds me of an old office of an insurance agent in rural New Brunswick 20, 30 years ago. An insurance agent, you know, back of his house, side of his house, had this small office with wood panel, older furnishing. And I walked in there, and that's what it looks like. And I said, John, I hate to tell you this, but my office at the university, it's not palatial, I assure you, it's better than your office. It's embarrassing for me to say that. Oh, that's all right. I kind of like my office. It works. That's John Bragg.
Yeah, it's not opulent at all.
No, he doesn't. Yeah. He's not one to flash. No.
Let's go back to 1969. His blueberry business is still in its relative infancy, and the CRTC comes along and starts awarding cable licenses. And he is not at the time a communications or TV expert, but he decides to buy one in Amherst. Why?
Well, actually, it's more than that, because I think the blueberry business hit a real dark period in the late 60s, just when he had built his first plant. And so it was a rough go. I mean, there was a drought, and didn't get the harvesting that he thought he would, so it was difficult. And along came somebody peddling CRTC licenses, and Amherst was there, so he applied for it. And I remember some years ago in Moncton, people saying, well, he got the license because he's a Liberal, because he was a well-known Liberal. Well, that's simply not true. He got a license because there's only one who applied for it in Amherst, and that was him. Nobody else applied, so he got the license. And actually, I think John Bragg saw back then that there was potential. And he decided, well, if there's potential in my backyard, I want a piece of it. So he got into it. And from Amherst, he grew into Sackville, New Brunswick, Port Elgin, later on Truro. He started much like a Pac-Man. I mean, somebody would say, I'd like to sell my cable business in a small village somewhere, and John was there. It was a Pac-Man. And people who put deals together tell me that John always paid top dollar. Never tried to sneak one by anybody. So he assembled quite a nice business over the years.
Eastlink at one time, early on, was losing $11,000 a month, and he stuck with it. Why did he stick with it when it was hemorrhaging money at the time?
John, that's an interesting question. I've asked him a few times, not just related to Eastlink, but John Bragg is not one to put things in reverse. He's not one to back down, you know, from a challenge. There's many occasions where he could have sold out and cashed in and done like a lot of people who had cable business, cashed in and buy a house in Florida, buy a big house in Canada, enjoy life. That's not John Bragg. He saw potential, he saw challenges. He said, I don't want my children or my grandchildren to think that I was not up to the challenge. I saw a challenge, I wanted to meet it head on, and he did. In fact, that's who he is. If you want to get a sparkle in John Bragg's eyes, talk about his grandchildren. He absolutely adores his grandchildren. And so for him, it's not just the short term. He sees things over a longer term, not just from his community, from his region, and from Canada. He saw the potential, he grabbed it, he was not about to let go. Even though there were some rough periods, either in the blueberry business or at Eastlink, he just kept going at it.
We are all familiar with the bundle today. Telephone, television, internet. Was that his baby?
Yes, yes. And Eastlink was the first to come up with that, and every other company in North America has now embraced it. He's got a very creative mind. Not a flashy mind, but very creative, very sound. And so he sees potential and does not sit, he grabs it and runs with it. That's who he is.
How does he hire? What's important to him?
I've got a whole chapter at the end about his management style, and I would urge business people and entrepreneurs to read that chapter, because there's a gold mine of lessons learned. He manages by giving a lot of leeway. He will trust people he hires. He will make sure they will hire the right person for the right task. If they don't pan out, he will not pussyfoot around with it. He has told me it's in his interest and the person's interest to let go. So he knows how to hire. He knows how to shape. The other thing he does, and employees have told me this, he gives them a lot of leeway. You run with it. It's your business. You know it. Run with it. And John will always say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So he will delegate, but he will look at performance. He will measure performance, and he will evaluate it. That's how he manages these sprawling kinds of operations.
So he delegates, but he is a demanding boss?
Very. Demanding for himself, but demanding always with a high level of civility. He's not, you don't hear John Bragg curse or lose his cool, or that's not the way he manages things. He'll delegate, make high demands, give them leeway, assess performance in an objective fashion, and let them run with it.
Why does he still own Eastlink today, do you think?
Because, look, it's no secret that John Bragg over the years was offered a handsome amount of money to sell. Today, he could turn around and sell Eastlink and make a heck of a profit, as we all know. But that's not him. Again, it's not, he firmly believes that he and his managers are as good as any manager in Toronto or Montreal or Calgary. If they can do it, he can do it, his managers can do it. So why would he sell? He has no reason to sell. He thinks he can swing with the big boys. In fact, his track record suggests to me that he's pretty good swing with the big boys. So he's not one to back down. He's not one to give up. He sees the future, and it's not about, for John Bragg, I think it's an important point, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. It's about a scorecard to see how well he's done, his business have done. He likes to compare his performance of Eastlink with the other groups, and he wants to compete. That's what John Bragg is all about.
We'll have more inside the mind of Mr. Bragg shortly. Donald Savoie, our guest here on this special program here on Eastlink. Final segment now with Donald Savoie. He is the author of a new book called The Rural Entrepreneur, John Bragg, the force behind Oxford Frozen Foods and Eastlink. When you do a deal, there should be two winners. That's not my quotation, that is John Bragg. He really believes that?
Absolutely. And the lawyer who put deals together for John Bragg, I had a good session with him, that's his trademark. That's the way John Bragg wants it. He doesn't want to take anything off the table that doesn't belong to somebody else. He wants it fair, square. And actually, I think it has served him, well, I know it has served him well, because a lot of businesses that sold cable, they went to John Bragg knowing that they wouldn't get screwed, knowing that they would get a fair deal. And so fairness is the way he does business, and over the longer term, it worked in his favor.
You have segments of a speech he gave in your book. It's a great speech. And in it, he quotes Alexander Graham Bell, who, I'm paraphrasing, when one door closes, another one opens. And his point is, don't spend too much time focused on the door that closed. Look to the one that has opened. Is that a fair paraphrasing?
Well, absolutely, and that's how he believes it. That's how he lives. I have to tell you, when you hang around John Bragg, you don't get negative vibes. There's always a positive side to it. That guides him. The other thing he told me, that he quoted someone, I forget who, but he uses it a fair bit. When you look into the future, look to the horizon. Don't look to your feet. And that's the way he built his business, always looking ahead, never looking to where he's been or where he's going, but looking 5-10 years ahead. And if you look at Eastlink, it's a tremendous success story. Born and bred in Amherst, Nova Scotia, and grow to a national-wide business in some parts of it in Bermuda now. That's how he did it. He looked at the horizon. Where's this thing going? Where's the business going? Where's the internet going? He didn't look to his feet. And so I hope that entrepreneurs from the Maritimes would borrow that lesson, would look and say, look, let's look at the future. We can make this work.
How do you be such a successful serial entrepreneur? There are a finite number of hours in a day, days in a week, weeks in a year, and he's got so many businesses. How do you do that? I guess energy is one answer, isn't it?
Certainly energy, passion. I mean, entrepreneurship for him and his businesses and his community, he's very passionate about it. For one to say, John Bragg, you're working hard, he wouldn't understand what you're talking about. For him, it's not work. It's his passion, it's his pleasure. That's what he wants to do, that's what he enjoys. And so he always finds time to do the right thing in business and so on. So again, for him, it's a passion, it's not work.
Of all of his businesses, is the wild blueberry still the one that's closest to his heart?
I tell you, the cover of the book is a photo of John picking blueberries. I took the photo. I was with him in Pigeon Hill. I took the photo, and I showed it to somebody, and he looked at that photo and said, "That must be his happy place," because you could see it in his face. Yes, I mean that his deep commitment to his family, to his community, it's all there. On Pigeon Hills, that's where he started picking blueberries 65 years ago, and it is his happy place. So picking wild blueberries, that shaped him. And he understands farmers in a way that you and I never will. Of course, Eastlink is something that he's passionate about. Of course, he's built quite a success story. It's all there. But wild blueberries, he's become the biggest producer in the world. He controls 40% of the frozen wild blueberry market in the world. It's how he started. It's how he grew. It gave him opportunities. And so, yeah, the wild blueberry field, that's his happy place.
You have a chapter in your book totally devoted to the concept of philanthropy. It's called Deep Pockets, Long Arms.
Yeah.
Not every entrepreneur has the deep pockets and long arms to go along with. What makes him special in that regard?
He has deep pockets, as we all know, and he has long arms. I've heard the story many times that this business person has deep pockets, short arms. That's not John Bragg. He's got long arms. I think it comes from where he grew up, how he grew up in Collingwood, where you help your neighbor, where it's not impersonal like Toronto or Calgary or Halifax or Moncton. It's the small community spirit where you're there. If your neighbor's got problems, you help your neighbor. His daughter told me that he went away, brought presents for them when he came back. There was a neighbor not too well-to-do. He brought presents for their children, and so that's what shaped him. And so giving for him, it's quite natural. It's not something that he does it for show. In fact, he doesn't want to brag about it. He doesn't want to talk about it. I tell you, he's got 77 scholarship funds that he's established in Atlantic University. 77. That's a lot. Not a single one of them bears his name.
Yeah, right back to that humility issue, right?
Yeah, that's who he is. So it's not to show off. It's because that's part of his ethos. That's part of who he is.
We've got about 90 seconds left, and I think one of the reasons you wrote this book is to provide an answer to this question. What should young entrepreneurs learn from reading this book and learning the story of John Bragg? Do you want to expound on that? What should young people getting into a business learn from Mr. Bragg?
Well, look to the horizon. Don't look to your feet. Don't ever give up. Keep at it. John Bragg has had some difficult moments. People don't appreciate this. It wasn't always easy. It's easier now, but he has some tough moments. And for him, I would say, you can do it in the Maritimes. You can do it in your small community. Don't give up. Go for it. There's an opportunity.
Is he slowing down at all?
I haven't seen it. I played golf with him not that long ago, and life for me, he's 80, 81 years old, and he's still full of energy and roaring to go.
And nothing more important than family to this man?
Terribly. Family means a lot to him. You want to get a sparkle in his eyes? I've said a while ago, I'll see it, I'll repeat it again. Talk about his grandchildren. Talk about his family, his grandchildren. He just comes alive.
Yeah, this is book number 53 for you. I got a sense you enjoyed writing this one.
Yes, very much. It was fun. It was a lot of fun because I felt that there was an important book that needed to be written about John Bragg, given what he's done for his community, for my Maritime region, and who he is. He earned a good book, and I hope I produced a good book.
Yeah, it is. It's excellent. I thank you for talking to us today. Donald Savoie, the author of the book, The Rural Entrepreneur John Bragg, the force behind Oxford Frozen Foods and Eastlink. Thank you for watching. We'll see you down the road.